Good morning, you guys. Carina Gardner here, and today I have Paula Chamberlain with me. Paula Chamberlain is the podcaster from A Quilter's Life. I'm really excited for you guys to listen to her today. Welcome, Paula.
Thanks, Carina. It's so great to be here to share my story with you.
So this is so fun because Paula is an avid quilter, but I also want to know a little bit about why you started your podcast. So do you want to just kind of dig in and tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I need to jump back to my husband had a podcast and he had all this equipment. And I thought, well, since he's doing a podcast, I should be listening to podcasts. So I started trying to find quilting podcasts to listen to while I quilted. And there's some great ones out there, but I wasn't getting the full story of who these people were behind the beautiful quilts. So I decided since he already had equipment, I could just start a podcast. But his was a solo podcast, so I started and I had to get my own equipment because I have guests on mine and it takes different equipment.
Yeah, totally. That is so fun. Okay, so you started this podcast to talk about quilters' stories. Will you tell me, you and I talked a little bit before we began and talk a little bit about your mom and, kind of getting started with this.
Sure. Like I said, I started it purely out of selfish reasons, but also I knew there were a lot of older quilters out there, and I just would love to hear their stories. And even though my mom wasn't a quilter, since I had this wonderful equipment, I was upgrading, put it that way. I was upgrading my equipment so the sound would be better. And I was waiting till I got that a little bit better, but then COVID hit. And my mom had just moved into assisted living and she went downhill kind of quickly. So my window closed on me and I was unable to get my mom's stories recorded, but I would love to be able to record other stories so people don't miss that opportunity like I missed it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the stories that end up on your podcast and how do you find the people to come talk to you?
Well, sometimes I feel like a used car salesman. Hi, I'm the host of A Quilter's Life. Would you please be on my podcast? So, but I've gotten to interview wonderful, wonderful people. My first interview was a local lady in her 80s, and she did all sorts of things. Like she learned to fly when women's voices weren't on the radio. And she ended up teaching flying, but she was a quilter all along on some of these amazing other things that she got to do in life. And she's still very active quilter. She's 89 now. Just so many wonderful people, both men and women quilters. And just hearing their stories just always excites me. Even though I ask the same questions, everyone has their own answers and it really turns out well. And another aspect of my podcast is young quilting businesses. The owners are interviewed and give their stories so that people get to know them and feel a little bit more like they know them before they actually purchase from them.
Yeah, I think that's a really wonderful service that you provide. I'm curious, is there a story amongst all of the podcast episodes you've done that really struck you or stood out to you?
I had the privilege to interview Dick Dupuy, and he was a clothing designer in the 50s and 60s. You can put his name out there and see some of the gowns he used to create. Evidently, he was very well known, but he took up quilting after retirement and he's in his 90s and still quilting.
So is he making apparel at all or just quilting?
As far as I know, he was just quilting.
Oh my heavens, that is so crazy. Did he say why he took up quilting versus still making apparel? Why the change?
I don't know exactly.
That's so crazy. So, so cool. Any other stories you would love to share with my audience?
Well, I was listening to some of your podcasts, and one thing you mentioned was listening to the right people and to encourage you whether you should do something or not do something.
Mm.
And that made me think of after I announced I was going to start my podcast, I was at a podcast conference, and the speaker on the main stage was saying, "Oh, throw out your first 9 episodes because you'll get better and you won't want those ones anymore." And I'm thinking, who can I interview that I'm willing to throw out? I'm not willing to throw out any of these. But it really held me back in getting my podcast out there.
Oh, that's interesting that held you back. Do you think it was just because you felt like you had to follow his advice?
Yeah, it was a big conference, and being on the main stage meant you were a bigger name. And so, yeah, I took that to heart and wasn't sure what to do with that information. And then, I don't know if you've heard of John Lee Dumas and Kate Erickson, husband and wife, very big podcasters. Well, I had the opportunity, we're in their group. And so I had the opportunity to speak with Kate, and I asked her about it. And she said, "Paula, get it out there." So I attribute that to Kate being able to listen to her, knowing she had sound advice in the podcasting area, and I was able to get my podcast out.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that is too bad that held you back. Yes, I think my first 9 episodes, I'm sure, are total crap, but I just am unconcerned about it. We just put them out, and we hope that people who are listening are going to get the most out of it. And then also, based on the kind of podcast you do, you're really trying to help people find their voice and share their story. So it feels so different than possibly like maybe a business podcast, or maybe the types of podcasts out there where they're trying to promote something. Don't you think?
I'm not sure.
That's what I'm figuring was going on. I've never been to a podcast conference, but that's what I'm wondering, that if it was going on. So I would love to know at this point in time, so by the time this airs, about how many podcast episodes have you gotten out? And by the way, you guys, we've been talking about her podcast. It's called A Quilter's Life. And tell me about how many episodes you think you have out, and then how do you find people to come onto your podcast?
A lot of prayer. But, a couple different ways. In December, I was lost. People are just busy during the holidays, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. So I was able to get on a call with Carolina Moore, and she has a group on Wednesday nights in Clubhouse with quilters. And I thought I would jump on that and throw out an ask, and thought maybe I'd get 1 or 2. Well, I asked, and Carolina and Bill Bruner got on their Facebook group of quilt designers and put out my ask. And before I knew it, I had 20 people sign up. I've never had that many sign up. So I am just blown away and thrilled and thankful for them to help connect me with other quilters. I have gotten on Google Maps, written quilt shops near me or quilt shops near wherever, and made some phone calls, and they've been wonderful interviews. So it's been great to.
I love that. Okay. So here's the thing that's so interesting about you. When we were talking, I was like, what can I help you? Do you machine quilt? Do you own a quilting shop? You have none of those things. You just love quilting.
Mm-hmm.
And you love quilter stories.
Yes.
So literally, you guys, she does this out of the kindness of her heart. That is like really something I haven't run into for a very, very long time, which I think makes your podcast extra special, Paula.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so nice. Now, she has owned a business over the last 38 years with your husband. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So they understand business. They've been doing all these business things. So this is literally, is it the thing you do because you just love it? Is it a hobby? Like, what motivates you to continue to do it? Because it is a lot of work to run any kind of platform at all, let alone a podcast.
I've asked myself this several times. In fact, it's one of the questions I ask quilters is, why do you keep quilting when there's so many other things to choose from to do with your time with? So, yeah, I just find I really enjoy listening to these quilt stories, enjoy getting to know all these wonderful people. And I even enjoy the editing. I get to sit down in the evenings and put in my editing software and put my headset on and listen to their story all over again and take out all our little ums. And it just works. I love doing this for them.
Oh my heavens. This is where Paula and I are very, very different. I hate editing podcasts. I edited the first several months of my own podcast, and I'm so grateful to have handed it over to somebody else. I think that's really awesome that you really even enjoy editing it, because it's probably a second round for you to kind of hear what was really happening.
Yeah. Sometimes when you watch a movie or something, you watch it again and think, oh, I missed that the first time. So yeah, getting to listen to it again. And again, I listen to them when I'm quilting.
Oh, I love it so much. All right, you guys, you've got to go check out Paula's podcast. It's called, I have to put it in front of me again. I'm going to let you promote it because it's the only thing you're promoting, which is come over and listen to my quilting stories. So go ahead, Paula.
I'm the host of A Quilter's Life, where I get to hear the stories of the wonderful people behind the beautiful quilts.
Oh, I love that so much. Guys, go over and check her out. I am going to go hop over onto her podcast soon as well, or it might even be there depending on when these episodes come out. And I hope you enjoy all the beautiful quilt stories that Paula has curated on her podcast. Hey, did you know that you can visit me at makeanddesign.com to learn more about this podcast and join my VIP group for weekly freebies? I can't wait to see you there.